the primary elections happened in the great state of Georgia recently, and it ended up being a complete and utter nightmare because the state was not prepared at all for, an election in the middle of a pandemic. And so what you'd see throughout the state in various counties were insanely long lines. They had lowered the number of polling places and consolidated the number of polling places. So in some cases, people were waiting to vote for up to 12 hours, which blows my mind because most people are not going to wait in a line like that. And the situation was so terrible with malfunctioning machines that even Stacey Abrams, who got burned from the last election, which was very much rigged by the person who's governor now, Brian Kemp, wasn't able to vote in the way that she had planned. So let me give you the details on that. So Stacey Abrams is like, all right, I'm going to do the mail-in voting. She gets her mail-in ballot. And then in that package, voters get an envelope to send their ballot in. The only problem was that envelope was already sealed. And so she wrote, my absentee ballot, when it arrived, had an unusable return envelope. And so I had to vote in person today because I could not replace that envelope. She even said I attempted to steam it open because I've watched lots of mystery shows. It didn't work and I was unable to open the, I know, like, all right, let's pause for a second. This is a super serious story. And honestly, like the news cycle has been so devastating for a long time that like you got to take the amusement or the fun where you can get it. And I really do appreciate that she put in that little tidbit about how she loves watching mystery shows. Anyway, she says, I attempted to steam it open because I've watched lots of mystery shows. It didn't work and I was unable to open the envelope, which meant that I was unable to return my ballot. So she did end up going to one of the polling places. And of course, unfortunately, many of them did have malfunctioning machines. Some of the poll workers were not adequately trained on how to deal with the machines, and the lines were excruciatingly long. And so on Tuesday, state GOP leaders and local Democrats alike called for investigations into what went wrong, lobbying partisan accusations about who was to blame for a lack of training and resources for poll workers. How about every local politician in the state of Georgia? This is, I mean, how many months have we been dealing with this pandemic? Why were they not prepared? They knew that there would be poll workers who'd feel uncomfortable showing up and that they would need replacements. Why did they not adequately train the replacements? I don't understand them. So among the voters who ran into issues was a woman named Rainey Branch, an actress, who said that she was appalled by the long wait. Branch said she and many acquaintances requested but never even received absentee ballots, forcing her to appear in person. Just a quick quote by Branch. She says, I stayed in line despite a 3-hour and 10-minute wait because my ancestors sacrificed too much for me to be stopped from exercising my right to vote. The volunteers told us they were not allowed to test the ballot machines before 7 a.m. How are people supposed to know the machines work if they can't test them first? Makes no sense. And I'm going to skip ahead to the last graphic because when I saw this tweet, I didn't know what it was about at first. But LeBron James was specifically commenting on what took place in Georgia during this primary election. He wrote, everyone talking about how do we fix this, meaning police brutality and, what the Black community is going through right now. And he says, they say go out and vote. What about asking if how we vote is also structurally racist? And he makes a good point there because many of the neighborhoods that are predominantly Black or predominantly have minorities are not, they don't have the resources necessary to ensure they have enough polling places or that absentee ballots get to those voters so they can actually participate in the election. I mean, this is an ongoing problem, and it's not like this just happened. Voter suppression, especially among the Black community, has been an ongoing issue, and especially since the Voting Rights Act was thrown out by the Supreme Court.
Yeah. I mean, who didn't know that this was coming? Anybody watching at home, raise your hand if you were surprised that, particularly in Georgia, that they had long lines. I don't see any hands. Because of course not. Of course. Oh, long lines in Atlanta. Man, the state GOP must be peeved about that. I love that they're calling for investigations. They're just incensed that Atlanta was having trouble voting. We know why. Because they cut funding, specifically to certain areas where people that they don't want voting vote. On the state level and on the national level. We just got done with a fight for assistance, financial assistance to make sure that the November elections go smoothly, and that there's increased funding for both election security and also mail-in voting. And the Republicans were explicitly against it, with Trump saying that if we have all this voting, it's going to be a disaster for Republicans. In Georgia specifically, you had a state Republican official saying that mail-in voting like this would be a disaster for Republicans. So spare me the shallow and only temporary concern over what happened in that primary. That is the system working as designed. It's not supposed to make sure that everyone can vote. It's designed so that the right sort of people and just enough people can vote, and that's it.
It's just so infuriating because, I mean, we're all on the Titanic. We see the iceberg, right? Like, people who talk about, oh, general election, November's coming, let's get Trump out. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if we don't have a sound system of elections, right? If we suppress voters, if we make it insanely difficult for people to vote, especially people who don't have the luxury of waiting 12 hours in a line to cast their ballot. People who are vulnerable to coronavirus and wouldn't feel comfortable going to a polling location and want to mail in their ballots, right? Like, there's a very strong concerted effort by Republican lawmakers, by the Trump administration, to prevent it from happening, to prevent people from being able to vote by mail. What are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? It's so frustrating because we see it happening, okay? We see all the warning signs. We see that iceberg right ahead, and we're not doing anything about it.
I mean, yeah.
Democrats are embarrassing. Democrats are embarrassing. Do something. Do something, okay? Stop with the performative nonsense, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the rest of you, and do something. Play hardball. Why can't they be as cutthroat and as vicious as Republicans are? They're just not. And it makes me angry because we just keep getting screwed over because we don't have anyone strong representing us.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.